Okay, hi everyone, my name is Karen and welcome to my Tiny Kids project. I'm Karen Cohen. I help people and systems work better together, and sometimes that means I'm a product manager, and sometimes that means I'm an engineering manager, and sometimes, but not all of the times, it means that I get to write a bit of code. I work for a company called Wix, and with Wix you can build a stunning website, and you can also run your business online. We have CRM platforms and events and a bunch of other things and bookings, and it's just a really cool tool. And about 1.5 years ago, I took over managing an engineering team. It's a server infrastructure team, and we have junior engineers and we have senior engineers in our team. And I just hear myself in an echo. And the first person I noticed within our team is a beautiful person called Dimitri. Dimitri is wonderful. This guy knows everything that there is to know about our systems, but not only about our systems, he also has a very solid computer science background, like a very good understanding of just about all of the layers of the network and the database and how everything is built. But then he also has a very good understanding of the product domain. So he basically knows how to do everything and what's everything about. He also fixes problems very fast. So he's one of those guys who thinks about the problem, he goes like this, and then he compiles the whole system, the whole repo in his head, and then he spews out code in 5 minutes, and it's already out there, it's already in production, and the bugs have already been fixed 20 minutes ago. He is always available, be it day, night, weekends, vacations, even if his daughter is sick, all of the time. He sets coding standards for our team. He cares a lot about code quality. He cares a lot about testing. He cares a lot about white spaces, tabs versus spaces. So he's the one doing that in our team. So he is awesome, but there are things that only he does. So only Dimitri knows all of the things. Only Dimitri reviews all of the commits that go into our repo, be them PRs, like pull requests, or just anything that basically goes into the repo, into the master branch or not. And even if he gets asked to do it or not, he basically reviews everything. He understands and modifies the hardest parts of our code. So Wix was founded about 10 years ago, and we own one of the oldest systems within Wix. So this is legacy code, 10 years. I know if you're from Microsoft, 10 years is nothing to you. But for us, it's still a lot of code to deal with. It's still a lot of what did that guy mean when he wrote this, and is it even still valid? So he's the only one who feels comfortable touching those parts of the code and all of the parts of the code. He cares a lot about design and architecture. So pretty much anything that goes into our system, he makes sure that he reviews, just because he cares. And the rest of the team is amazing. However, they have a very strong dependency on Dimitri. That's what they've developed, seeing as Dimitri puts himself out there so much. So as much as they want to push things forward, they have gotten to the point where they're afraid to make tough decisions on their own. So they end up waiting for him. And you can imagine someone who pushes code into the repository at 4 a.m., he's not going to be at the office at 8. He's going to be at the office maybe at 12 or maybe at 2, or maybe he spent all night caring for his daughter, so he's not going to be in at all. He's going to be maybe working from home. So people are basically waiting on him all the time to supply answers, to review, to brainstorm. And there are some things that you can't communicate over text. There are some things that you can't communicate over Slack. So if he's not in, if he's sick, then they're going to be waiting for him until he comes back. If he's on vacation for, 7 to 8 to I don't know how many days, they're going to be waiting for him. Our clients have been suffering. So some of them give up. Some of them bypass our systems. They hack around. They find a way to get what they need to do done. And some of them just complain to management. And they get Dimitri's time, so they get everything pushed out the door as fast as humanly possible. So Dimitri is very, very sad at this point.
And that's what really, really hurt to see. That's what really hurt me to see, is that Dmitry at this point is extremely frustrated and extremely sad. And this is because this guy's answering the same questions over and over again. He's not working on anything that's challenging to him. He's not growing in his position because he's reviewing things that he already knows how to do. He's answering questions that he already knows how to answer. He doesn't get any breaks. He doesn't get to grow. And for me, it was a big red warning sign when I came in and looked at that scenario. As much as he is appreciated, this isn't a situation that we want to have last long. So obviously, we needed to make a change. And it really reminded me of this awesome book, The Phoenix Project. Who here has read The Phoenix Project? Okay, that's a lot more than the other DevOps days that I've seen so far. So kudos. So there's this character, Brett, there, and Brett is basically the hero who saves the day, and he doesn't get any vacations. Even when he tries to take a vacation, they call him back in, and he gets very, very frustrated. But on the other hand, he's glorified as this person that, he always gets called to fix the problem. And a lot of shit hits the fan in this book. It's a fictional book, but still, it's something that we can all relate to. And, payroll doesn't get through, and their systems are going down. And when I thought about our situation, I thought about how close to reality this book really is. So if you haven't read it, go ahead and read it. I'm sure there are several copies online. So we talked about the fact that we needed to make a change. We thought about where we wanted to be. So obviously this picture comes to mind. This is exactly where I want to be in an old Microsoft Windows desktop with a dancing llama and a party hat and a rainbow. And where we want to be is we want to be able to move fast. We want to be able to deliver on features. We want to be able to share knowledge between the different team members. We want everyone on the team to be able to grow. So this isn't just the junior team members or the other senior team members of, it's also Dmitry himself. And if there's one thing I know about making a change is that you need to agree that there's a problem before that you can actually start making a change. So I held an intervention. And this intervention took form of first a couple of one-on-ones. So the first one-on-one I did was with Dmitry himself. My greatest fear in all of this was that Dmitry would have what's known as hero syndrome. So I thought he would be resentful to my trying to take away his space to be the one to save the day, to take away his Superman title. But luckily for me, he was very sad and frustrated in that situation, so he was completely on board. The other members of the team were also on board. So what we talked about in our one-on-ones was where they wanted to be, how they wanted to grow, which parts of the system they want to get to know, which sort of challenges they wanted to take part in, and where they see themselves. The second thing that I did was hold a team meeting where we all discussed where we want to be as a team, how we want to function as a team. And we came up with 2 guidelines to start with. And we also discussed the fact that we wanted to do this as an agile process, meaning that we know we don't have all the answers. We know that things are going to change, that our entire landscape, that our environment is going to change over time. Maybe there'll be a reorganization. We have no idea. And we talked about the fact that we want to do retrospectives and we want to make small changes in the way that we act, in the way that we, and in the way that we perform as a team. So the first guideline that we came up with is never come in empty-handed. So what does that mean? If you are dealing with a production incident, if you are dealing with a design problem, if you are dealing with any sort of problem that you need to solve in your day-to-day, what people in our team used to do is immediately go up to Dmitry and ask him to solve their problem. They would ask him, what do you think? How should I solve this? And what we said was, stop, don't do this anymore, the first thing you're going to do is perform research on your own. And you're going to force yourself to sit down, search it on Stack Overflow, search the code, come up with some sort of idea, some sort of suggestion to kick off the conversation. And what we hope this would do is a few things. The first is we talked about accountability. So a lot of the times team members would say things like, oh, I'm doing this because Dimitri said so. This solution makes sense because Dimitri suggested it. And it seemed like there was A, no understanding behind it, and B, it seemed like they didn't feel accountable for what they were delivering. So if something would fail in production, it would eventually be Dimitri's fault or Dimitri's decision. So having them do their research on their own, or even start out with some sort of suggestion, would make them feel more accountable for that solution. The second thing we would hope the second thing that we hoped that they would do was that it would prevent them, well, not prevent, but that it would eliminate the need to go up to Dimitri after they had done that research on their own. And most of the times we saw eventually that it did. The second thing that we talked about, the second guideline that we talked about, was to escalate gradually. And so what does that mean? That means that we wanted to share knowledge between the different team members. So we discussed the fact that not every question that we have to go to Dimitri with. We talked about the fact that we wanted to create trust between the different team members. So having our team members talk to one another and request the assistance of one another within the team before going to Dimitri was, it felt like the right way to go. And eventually what we had hoped was, again, that it would eliminate the need to talk to Dimitri or to ask him to wait on him again, and that it would create that trust, that relationship, and that it would create that knowledge sharing that, that we were missing. Because again, only Dimitri knew all of the things. And what we saw was that we actually had to talk about a lot more things. We had to talk about how to make room for mistakes. We had to talk about the fact that, you know, you have this genius person, Dimitri, sitting there with all that knowledge and all that brain power, and suddenly you're a junior developer trying to make those decisions and trying to make that, that change in production, or that change in that feature, or change in that system, and you feel completely insecure. So we had to have a talk about how to allow yourself to make those mistakes. We had to have a talk about making time for learning. And that meant that the estimations were going to be a bit longer. That meant that maybe there would be more ping pong between the clients and us. And that's something that we had to communicate to our managers and to our clients. We also had to talk about patience. And this is actually the most important part, because this is a very, very long process. It's a learning process. You're not only learning the system, and you're not only learning about the tech, and you're not only learning about how to solve problems, you're learning how to function as a team. You're learning how to function with different people. And so you have to be patient, not only with yourself, give yourself the time to make those mistakes and to get to know these systems, to do that learning, but then also be very, very patient with the people that you're working with your other team members, with your managers, with your clients, with me as the team lead for this whole process. So obviously everyone was on board, and that was a joke because, well, it was very difficult to get people on board. But we started it, and we kept a journal. And the reason that we kept a journal was that we wanted to make sure that we made decisions based on facts. We wanted to make sure that we were making progress. We wanted to make sure that the progress that we were seeing was actually real. So we started out with documenting what systems, or what part of the systems people in the team know. We started with documenting what their abilities were, what they can do. Can they talk to a client? Can they design a system? Can they do a design review with the VP of engineering? Can they own a project from start to end? Can they work with this or that system? So we started with that, but then we also started with how the team works as a whole, how we all function together. How much time are you waiting for Dimitri at all? How much time is Dimitri spending answering these questions or reviewing people's code? And after about a month, we held a retrospective within the team. And what we saw was that people reported that they felt more involved in design work. They felt more confident when they spoke to Dimitri, because now what used to happen was that people would come up with a solution, with a proposed solution anyway, and Dimitri would have something to comment on. He would have something to review. It was no longer him approaching the problem and trying to solve it, offhand. It was a conversation. It was giving feedback on a problem. It was a learning process. Team members reported that they got to know more parts of the code, more parts of the system. And of course, Dimitri, being, the Russian that he is, he reported no significant change. So that was absolutely, it was actually beautiful. And what I loved about this point in time was that Dimitri, on the one hand, didn't see any change or didn't feel any change because he was apparently stuck in this old notion or in this old frame of mind where he had to do all this extra work. But then once I showed him what the other team members are doing, and once I showed him all the other work that was going around him and all the other efforts and initiatives that were taking place around him within the team, he started to believe that this change was possible. And that was the most beautiful part in the process, because up until that point, he was still skeptical. And up until that point, he wasn't really, truly wanting to play ball with us. And it was at this point as well, at the retrospective, where we had another initiative come up. One of the team members, and a junior team member actually, complained that Dimitri was still the only one reviewing code in our repository. So he suggested that everyone should start reviewing code. So that got us into our third guideline, which is everyone does code reviews and learns how to do them better. So the learns how to do them better part was the more tricky part for us, because on the one hand, you have several people who want to take this initiative and who want to donate their time, but on the other hand, they don't yet have these capabilities. So what we decided was to combine this with the Escalate gradually guideline that we had. So we said, first you have someone else from the team review your code, and then you have Dimitri review your code. And what happens if Dimitri finds something wrong? He reviews the reviewer, meaning that he goes up to the person who reviewed the code and he speaks to them and he explains what they missed or what his point of view is, and that way we get better reviewers. The reviewer, the original reviewer of the code, is still the one who owns the process. He's still the one in charge, or he's still the one that that is accountable for the code that goes in or whether or not the review passes. So we still left that that frame of mind, or that creation of trust between the different team members, alive in that way. We had another retrospective after that, after 3 months. And team members actually reported a complete attitude change from Dimitri's end, which was, again, beautiful to see. So they said that Dimitri smiles more, that he has a better attitude, and they also reported that they themselves had less occurrences where they had to come up to Dimitri and ask him things. And so with the combined, reporting or findings of these two things, what I assumed was that he now had the mental capacity to deal with the questions, or the minimal amount of questions that people kept asking him. And he now had the mental capacity to do harder problems. he was still in the loop for harder problems, which was what we wanted to begin with. We never wanted to push him out. We never wanted to lose him as a team member. We just wanted him to relax a bit and the other team members to grow. After 6 months, team members rejoiced as they corrected Dmitry, which is a beautiful process. It's like going up to God and saying, like, you're wrong, I'm right, and here's the proof. And we had team members, junior team members, lead projects and answer questions. We have people walking into our room all the time and discussing things on our team Slack channel. So we now have more people answering those questions, and we now have more people leading projects, meaning that this is less time that Dmitry has to spend thinking about these problems and leading these projects. We had a few team members, a few new team members join at that time for some different projects that we were involved with, and they apparently went up to my manager and asked to join our team after they saw the way that we were working. They talked about cross-pollination, they talked about empowerment within the team, and it was really like a beautiful testament to what we've achieved at that time. But I think the most beautiful part about all of this was that at this point in time, Dmitry could take on a side project. He could take on something that was challenging to him. It wasn't at the top of our priority list, but it was definitely something that we wanted him to do because it would help him grow, and he hadn't done that in so long. It was at that point in time as well that we had some junior team members. Well, basically the things that we talked about them growing, and the way that the guidelines that we had spoken about, the guidelines that we had implemented within our team, apparently they had leaked into other areas of their performance. So we had a team member who had problems taking a large task and splitting it up into several smaller tasks. And usually I would be the one to help him deal with that. And I had done this for about a year, and then about 6 months after we started this process, what happened was he had a project to lead. I came up to him, I asked him if he wanted any help, and he said, well, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own, and I'm going to come to you for feedback and see what you think. That blew my mind. I mean, that was the first time that had happened, that he actually felt comfortable doing that. So it was really a beautiful time. But, I mean, obviously, we're not done yet. Obviously, this is a process. Culture isn't something that you, like, change and then you let go. It's something that you have to keep nurturing and that you have to keep at it all the time. Otherwise, people go back to their old habits. So one of the things that happened was that we had a new team member join. And so we had a buddy for him. We have a buddy system within the team. But what happened was that he noticed that Dmitry was the top authority in the room. So he just said, well, why do I need my buddy and why do I need anyone else to review my code? I'm just going to go straight to Dmitry. And that was an issue. That's something that we had to talk about. And again, we had to go over the guidelines and we had to go over what's in it for him and how he gets to grow and the relationships that he gets to make within the team and with the different team members. Another thing that I really want Dmitry to stop doing, and this is still in discussions, of course, is the informal code reviews. So Dmitry still sits on the master branch. He gets a notification on every single thing that goes in. 4 a.m., you see him pushing code into the repo. But this time, it's code that he's happy to work on. So like last Saturday, 2 a.m., I see him pushing code into the repo, but it's for his side project. It's for something that he loves to do, which I'm very happy about. The informal code reviews, I would rather have things go into production, break, and have that person learn how to take out that fire. I think it is my personal belief that the knowledge that you gain from dealing with that fire and with that production incident will last longer if it's going to be you, and if it won't be a safety net. We talked about regression. So again, every new person that joins the team, we go a bit backwards. Every new person that, well, not backwards, but it changes. The dynamics is completely different. But there are a few things that are still going on that I haven't yet documented in this presentation, but are still quite awesome. So we've had Dimitri take off to vacations with no Wi-Fi and no cell reception twice since I wrote this talk, for long periods of time, like 2 and 3 weeks, and nothing bad happened. It was beautiful. So I love that. We had one team member leave the team to join another one to lead a big project. And we have just these amazing accomplishments that that we can hold in regards to this process that we held. It is my hope that our story could help you either as a team lead or a team member or a tech lead deal with this, let's call it a minimalized bus factor. If you don't know what the bus factor is, it's basically what happens if, what is the number of people that need to get hit by a bus for things not to work. So I really hope that this could help you and that our guidelines could help you and that our story could help you figure out how to increase the bus factor in your team. And I will be here for some of the rest of the day if anyone wants to discuss anything or ask me any questions. Thank you.